we used to think of journalists being challenged by government and big business, right? These were the two big threats that media independence faces. But today we hear from around the world that journalists are also threatened by forces from the ground, from the people themselves. Yeah? And this is kind of odd because we normally think of journalists trying to side with the people. But here it is, but suddenly we find that the people can turn against the media. So how have you and your fellow journalists in India experienced this?
This question of yours, that when you try to raise a voice against for the people and the people go against you, in India it has a very multi-dimensional approach, because at present our government has got an absolute majority. So this majority government, so that means that people have voted them to power. And as all of you know, that India is the world's largest democracy, and plus we are having a majority government that believes in a particular ideology. It's a religious ideology. So anybody questioning or raising questions against whatever this government does, it has not taken in the right light. Instead of saying that, okay, it's a policy decision, that could be wrong policy decision, but any decision or any endorsement is automatically converted into a religious aspect. So we journalists, and when I say we, I mean journalists who do the basic job of questioning people in power, or asking right questions, speaking truth against power, against certain anti-environmental policies, or whatever the issue is, just doing the basic job, are threatened. And these threats come from people. There are three types of people who attack you. One are the misguided lot, who feel that they voted for this particular religious ideology, and if you do not endorse a government decision, it means you are against the government. Number two, people who confuse raising questions as some sort of traitorship, that you are not being patriotic enough, and that is why you don't endorse a particular decision. And third are that, this is a government which has its propaganda machinery completely well oiled. So these are the people, this regime at all levels, starting from the state capital to the smallest village. They have wonderful social media toolkits. And it's a very well organized machinery, which we call the paid trolls. Unemployment is at an all-time high right now in India. So a lot of people make good money by tweeting in favor of the government and attacking all those who do not support a particular issue of the government. When there's something good that happens, we just report. So, like, we are supposed to be unbiased and unpartisan. But when we commend the government, it's fine, But when you criticize a personality, a decision, or even violence against women, if you question that why this city has seen 24 rapes, in 2 hours. There's one particular state called Uttar Pradesh where this happened, and then we were targeted and we are threatened. India, China does not have a comfortable relationship, so we are told to leave India, or we are alleged to have Chinese connections, or asked to go and live in Pakistan, that we are not meant for India, we are not true Indians.
tell me more about the methods that they use. So it is obviously trolling we are familiar with in Hong Kong, China, everywhere, right? So people will attack you online. But some may say, well, you know, journalists use words. What is the harm in their opponents fighting you back with words? Does it get more serious than that, than simply just being insulted online?
Yes, you know, the survey says there's a recent survey by International Council for Journalists, which says that, you know, online trolling leads to offline attacks also. And this has been the case where I remember two particular cases where I was first threatened online, and then it graduated to an offline, actually, you know, I wouldn't say a threat, an attack. So I had about 200 people swarming my office at Times of India just because they did not believe something that I wrote off. That during the coronavirus pandemic, there were some new ventilators introduced by the government and supported by the government, calling it Great Make in India initiative. And then when I investigated, I found that these were not actually ventilators. They were very sophisticated mechanical ambu bags. So when we exposed the thing, you know, like the government first tried to book me under a very draconian sedition act, which would ensure that I don't even get a bail for next 5 years. But, you know, truth always wins. So while the process was on, of course, I was as I told you, there were lots of people and organizations who came and said, oh, I have a very Western mind and I don't encourage anything that's locally made. And they, you know, while the online attacks were on, offline these threats and everything was on. And meanwhile, there was a fire at two hospitals which used this fake ventilators, and at least 8 or 10 people died. But people were saying, oh, this is a Make in India project, you know, you want everything purchased from China only or from West only, you know, this sort of attacks. And then they graduated to something more serious where people would come and, you know, would want to have an audience with me. They would just barge 40, 50 people at a time. And I was doing this as a service to people, that more people do not lose lives, you know, because these were not ventilators.
They couldn't on the sedition charge because basically you were proven right. It would have been very
embarrassing. Yes. Because these fires happened, and, you know, the forensic reports, they actually established that the fire started from these ventilators.
You know, some of the responses from the people, whether it is very nationalistic responses or they feel that they are defending their religion, some of it is probably quite genuine. I mean, these are people who are genuinely nationalistic, genuinely are very defensive about their religion. But explain how do the politicians make use of these genuine feelings and sort of weaponize them? Is it very well organized?
It's a very well organized, very well oiled machinery. And I have to give credit to my government that they get people from Harvard, Stanford, Oxford, you know, to head their social media and their outreach committees. So they're very good at their communication. They do a very good professional job at it. So when they target, they already have lists, you know, that this area, these are 3 journalists who are doing their job, asking questions to the government. So there would be a small committee which would constantly monitor what we do online, what we do offline, you know, and then they prepare a common response, that this is the response that you have to you know, let out. So then everybody is mailed that, or WhatsApp is used to propagate that message, and then when the attack comes, it comes all together. I would give a recent example that some very serious farmers protests are going on right now in India, and these are as of now, this is the world's largest ongoing protest, right, regarding the farm laws. And there have been like uh, there have been journalists who wrote of how the government had disconnected water supply and electricity to this protesting farmers, to weaken their morale. So a police complaint was filed against this journalist, 6 journalists, and 2 journalists were arrested. So I, along with some of my friends, we started a free press. How India, which is the world's largest democracy, has to have a solid free press where we report the truth, where we voice out our concern. So we started that free press, #free press campaign, and we were targeted, we were abused online, and it was terrible. Again, when Rihanna, and there were a lot of celebrities like Rihanna, Greta Thunberg, Mia Khalifa, and a few heads of various states, like the Canadian Prime Minister, a lot of ministers from United Kingdom, when they showed solidarity, even if you retweet that, it became an anti-national act. So then even the celebrities were doing this, and the entire government machinery, first of all, they said whoever is non-Indian and speaks on the farmers' issue is not allowed to, because it's an interference in India's policy. When Black Lives issue happened in the United States, these were the same people talking about how Black Lives matter. But here it is being dubbed as an interference in our domestic ecosystem. So if we would retweet theirs, what they would do is, the regime, the entire Indian cricket team, the Bollywood stars, all the ministers, they were given the same script that you have to retweet that, oh, this is an international conspiracy to defame India, and we do not like outsiders interfering and all such things.
I know there's been a lot of research on how trolling, for example, has a slightly different flavor when the targets are women journalists and the impact is different. Is that something that you and your South Asian women journalists have seen, and what is your response to that?
This is a very serious thing happening all over the world, not just India, all across the world. And I would say that whatever ideology, here, even if it's a right wing or a left wing or a liberal or a conservative ideology, whatever the ideology is, women are selectively picked up, assaulted, trolled, abused. In India, we did a very random survey with 1,200 women journalists. 1,200. Each one of them, we had 100% response, whatever ideology they belonged. If they belonged, to the right wing and they worked for right wing news media outlets, whether it's television or a radio or a newspaper, even they faced from the liberals, because women as a community, they are the main targets. Also, there is a survey that this all over the world, 73% women have reported facing this gender trolling. And this gendered trolling and gender biased abuse and attack is a very serious phenomena. If I have to talk, I just said a few minutes back about the free press campaign. As soon as I launched it, and there were males, there were male journalists, there were concerned people, everyone was voicing it. But when I did it, immediately within next 8 minutes, I had over 150 people offering me free sex instead of free press, saying this woman has gone bonkers and she needs this. And they started DMing me on Insta and Twitter. And I started just deleting the messages, and then I found out it was a very organized conspiracy started by someone. Now I've even registered a police complaint for this issue earlier this week. So gender specific trolling, abusing, it's a very serious phenomenon. Everyone experiences it. And unfortunately, people who do it, I sometimes see their biodatas. Not all of them belong to particular party or an ideology. I think at times there are misogynists also just doing it, or some psychos doing it. But most of the times it's a very organized effort to silence women's voices, So as a fraternity, like, and out of this, 100% women in India have faced online harassment and gendered trolling. And unfortunately, and this is another serious dimension to it, at least 20% women reported that this online gendered trolling had graduates to offline and real life attacks, assaults, and abuse. As I said, after the tweet, I would have people barging in, calling me Vatican sponsored. There was a 12-year-old minor girl was raped and later killed, in a particular state in India. So as a part of my assignment, I was there reporting. And then I found that the complaint that the police had registered was only of murder due to personal rivalry. So we found out that she was gang raped, and she was gang raped in a Hindu temple, right? In a temple. So we did not specify, we just said temple. But the entire troll army took it as an assault, calling me very anti-Hindu, and since the girl was a Muslim, the rape victim was a Muslim, which later, how did it come out is because there were lots of media which went and interviewed the parents, so the locality, the way they were talking, like it was clear, their names, that they were not Hindus, they were Muslims. So then they started a very systematic, organized campaign dubbing me as the fourth wife of the rape victim's father. So like this was a simple, it had nothing to do with politics. It was in a small village, but still such things happen. In last 3 months, at least 3 women who were first trolled online experienced stone pelting at their homes. So we took up the issue and we filed complaints. Of course, till now no arrests have been made. This is what happens.
I've, as you know, I've interviewed a couple of Indian cartoonists who have been victims of, female cartoonists who've been victims of this kind of abuse. And, they tell me that, on the one hand, they feel obliged publicly to show strength, right? Because they feel that, they don't want their abusers to feel the satisfaction of knowing that they have actually been intimidated, right? So publicly, they are always bold, fighting against misogyny and so on. But they admit that, no, it has actual real traumatic psychological effects. Is this your experience as well, talking to women journalists and something?
Definitely, and since like it hurts not just us, but we are scared of like we don't, the very idea of your children reading about it, your aged parents getting, anonymous calls and threats, the some the paid army writing some abusive articles in your mother tongues, which your community, the place you live, the place you work, the way it's circulated, it has, like, I've often lost my sleep and even had to consult a therapist twice, because it really went out of the hands, the vulgarity, the profanity, and real life threats. Like, you get worried about your children going to schools and colleges, about your aged parents. It's a very traumatizing experience. And it really affects your self-confidence, and it assaults your dignity. You feel very lonely and stuff like that.
And I should explain to the class that Deepal is one of the strongest and most courageous journalists I know. So if even you is affected, imagine how much worse for less experienced, less battle-hardened journalists. Yeah. You have told me about, you posted on social media about this network of South Asian women journalists. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so we were all very perturbed of whatever is happening. So SOM, it's called SOM, South Asian Women in Media Initiative. It's basically formed to address issues that women journalists face. I gradually and eventually I want to make it OM, Asian Women in Media Forum. But we're talking to women journalists in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, all these countries, Myanmar recently when the protests happened, and everywhere women are going through this traumatic experience. Plus, also we felt that there was less networking among women journalists across the world. So to facilitate more networking and provide solidarity to women journalists across the South Asian periphery, we've set up this initiative, and we've already got over 250 members. We've kept the membership very minimal. It would be less than $3 to begin with. And, women are raising concerns. And because of the Asia Journalism Fellowship also, that was, I was there with Cherian, we've got women asking me, our ex-fellowship colleagues and all. So together we want to make an impact. Like, we owe half the sky, but we feel discriminated as women and we are targeted. And it's not just South Asia. Like, I have friends in Asia, whether it's China or whether it's Philippines, and all of them have voiced out, because Asian women are, crimes against women is steadily increasing. There are more women getting into the workforce, but harassment, whether it's sexual or non-sexual harassment at work, lack of networking, lack of opportunities, lack of fraternity support. So we plan to address all these issues.
So, finally, I want to ask you about your latest venture, the V Media. Well, what is your what's the model that you are looking at?
Yeah. So, in fact, I was waiting for the International Women's Day on 8th March to publicly announce the company. Right now, I've called it V Media. The original name is Virago Media Private Limited. So Virago stands, if you look in contemporary textual or contextual references, it says it's an intemperate woman, a loud intemperate woman. But if you really, I tried to get into the history that a Virago is a warrior, a woman who has fought her own battles, who relishes the scares she has received in life, and who has always stood up for her rights and has been unconventional. But because she was unconventional, the Church of England converted her into a loud, intemperate, insensitive woman. So I'm going to focus on, it's going to be a general news and entertainment website. And I want people to connect with India in a better and in a true manner, not just feed them propaganda. So I'm going to hire about 50 journalists, and I'm getting very positive response about it. And I was working on a very good position with the world's largest media company as an editor, so it was a tough decision to take, but I thought I should take the plunge. And I'm going to set up my company where it's going to be the first company in India where I'm reserving 50% positions for women and the marginalized communities.
So that would include lower caste and so.
Yeah, and surnames really matter in India. That yes, because your surname reveals your caste, your community, your status. So I'm planning that I will ensure that we don't use our surnames. The entire company will not. And if any of you young students, if you have any novel ideas, please mail them. I would incorporate, and I want to set up a good media startup.
Excellent. Well, if anyone can do it, you can, I think, Deepal. You've got such experience and also the vision.
Wonderful.
Thank you, and I wish the entire class, all the best in your pursuits. And remember one thing, being anti-establishment is a badge of honor. Wear it proudly.
Excellent. Thank you.
Right? Thank you very much.